Good evening, I'm the Game Tutor, and tonight we're going to be talking about Moonlighter, a roguelite slash shop hybrid sim developed by Digital Sin and published by 11-bit Studios, which is out today on Nintendo Switch. Now, the game seems to take the role of a young merchant named Will, who's taken over the family business of running the shop Moonlighter in the town of Rinoka, a town built on the edge of a site holding mysterious dungeons that people go in and take loot. Now, Will is determined to enter these dungeons and gain keys to finally enter the mysterious fifth gate that all the villagers are talking about. Now, inside these dungeons the layout changes every time, and adventurers go in to find treasure, and thus begins your adventure in Moonlighter. Funnily, for a game with semi-randomised layouts, this has to be one of the first times that I can recall where it is actively explained eventually in the lore of the game. The game is split into two very distinct halves. First is the roguelite trips into the dungeons themselves to kill enemies and gain loot, and the other half of the game is where you return from those dungeons with your loot in tow and challenges you the task of actually selling your wares. Now, the roguelite portion of the game plays well, playing similar to a top-down Legend of Zelda game with the basic layout style of Binding of Isaac. Players fight through ever-increasing dungeons in search of loot. While the enemies get tougher with each dungeon and each floor down you go, as does your gear get better, and providing you level with the dungeon, nothing should pose too much of an issue. There are a number of different weapons to use, such as swords, spears, bows and gauntlets, and each have their pros and cons. Each weapon can also have an effect such as stunning, inflicting poison, fire and electricity. Gameplay is fast and responsive, with a very kind of evade roll that seems to let you dodge pretty much anything if timed correctly. The weapons have a decent sense of weight behind them, and I found playing through the dungeons fun and about the right level of difficulty. There's no levelling as such, you just get better gear and weapons, which in turn can be bought and made from drops in each dungeon in the game. As you pick up items to take back to town, you run into another interesting mechanic, and this is managing your inventory space. Never in a game have I seen such an engaging way to force players to manage their industry. I'm looking at you, Resident Evil. Now, items only stack in 5s or 10s, but some items come with a curse. Now, this can be things such as your item can only be placed at the top or bottom of your bag, or that the artifact to the left will be destroyed when you head back to town. There are also positive curses that can be used to counteract this, such as the ability to cure another curse or duplicating the item with another item. This is a fun distraction that's almost a puzzle game that means you really must think about strategy every chest you encounter as to what to pick up for selling and what to discard for a fraction of its worth. When you head back to town, you must then open Moonlighter and sell the wares that you've earned that day. You must set the prices by gauging customer reactions to find out how much something is worth and manage your stock. You literally have to get behind the counter and manually ring a sale up every time. And while I enjoyed restocking shelves, also was the annoyance of dealing with thieves. Now, this is all an interesting mechanic and I really enjoyed all of it. Once you've worked out the prices of each item, it became a little bit formulaic, but I always did find myself having fun, and it can be really satisfying, especially after a trip into a new dungeon, when you come back loaded with loot and you manage to sell your wares. Visually, the game is great, with some beautiful pixel style artwork and animation. On the pre-release Switch version I played, however, there were a lot of bugs. There was quite a bit of noticeable slowdown in places, especially when there was a lot of things on screen at once. I crashed a few times, I got stuck when I went into a new area. When you have stacks of the hidden cursed items, you can't quite split them properly. I achieved an awful graphical glitch in the final area of the game, and the list does, to a certain extent, go on. Now, many of these issues have been patched on the PC version of the game, and while we are still waiting to see if this actually happens on Switch. Now, they aren't game breaking, but they are slightly too frequent and annoying to not warrant a mention here. Story is light, and sadly the town of Rinoka feels a little empty. Apart from the things you need to visit, I would have liked if the customers had names and personalities and interacted with you better. A little bit of inspiration from Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing definitely could have gone a long way here. Equally, without revealing too much, while the climax of the game and the opening of the fifth gate does explain the story and the lore, I was left a little bit underwhelmed, disappointed, and was desperately craving more game that the New Game Plus mode just isn't really going to meet, but surely that's a good sign. Overall, I had a really good time playing Moonlighter and can wholeheartedly recommend it. A few small issues aside, it's a great unique spin on a tried and tested formula that is definitely worth your investment this holiday season.